Many people in Canada refer to us as the people to go to for getting the money training. And in fact, we have a totally unique approach to what we teach, and I'm really excited to share some of those pieces with you tonight. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you on the call with me. I'm going to pack it in, so I hope you're ready. My suggestion, if you haven't already, close the door, tell your family you're busy, get comfortable so you can take notes. Have a pen, have paper, because there's going to be a lot of things I'm going to talk about that you're going to want to write down. Maybe you've been on other webinars. I know I've been on a lot where they give you some high-level training. You know, you get some motivation, you get some good pointers, but that's all you get. Well, today I am offering you an extra special invite to join our upcoming training that starts on March 19th. It's an offer you won't see anywhere else but here, but I'm also going to pack it in and give you a ton of value for the investment of time that you're making here with me tonight. So my plan is to spend about 90 minutes covering content. It's impossible to teach you everything you need to know to excel at raising money in just 90 minutes, but I can make you better, and that's what I will do tonight. So tonight I'm going to give you the scoop on the secret you must know to raise money. Plus I'll be sharing 5 tips for doing it without feeling salesy. This training is really geared towards helping you stop scaring away your potential investors and start feeling confident when you speak to people about your deals. I'm also going to talk about how you leverage one deal into many. So this time next year, and probably sooner if you start working right away, you never have to wonder where the money for your next deal is coming from again. I'm also going to talk a little bit about all the ways we fund our deals, because I find that there's a lot of emphasis in Canada on joint venture agreements, joint venture deals. And they're great, and they're certainly something that we've relied very heavily on. But there are plenty of other ways to fund your deals, and I think you should know all of them, because there's certainly situations where you don't want a JV, and it's not ideal to grow an entire portfolio all with joint ventures. So you want to have deals that are just your own, and there's other ways to tackle this, and I'm going to talk about that tonight too. Now, this is a special webinar for readers of Canadian Real Estate Wealth magazine. So some of you, I know some of you are absolutely revenue readers, but some of you maybe aren't that familiar with me. Maybe you've just read a few articles that I've written, because I've written over 35 for Canadian Real Estate and been interviewed and featured in probably well over a dozen others. But I just want to give you a really short bio of myself, which is always weird introducing yourself, but I want to give you a short bio just so you know who I am before I talk with you for the next 90 minutes. And I do say talk with you because I encourage you to participate. There's a box on, I think it's on your right, in your computer screen where you can type, and I will try to keep an eye on it. I am solo tonight on this effort, so I have to talk, switch slides, make sure everybody's hearing me, and keep an eye on what you're saying. But I love it when I find out I'm not talking to myself. So you can feel free at any time to type questions, hellos, comments, etc. in that box on your computer. And at the end, assuming that there's still time and I still have energy after I give it my all for the next 90 minutes, I will also open up the lines for some Q&A. So if you want to chat, you have questions specific, you want to get on, I love hearing live voices. Also gives me a chance to stop talking for a minute. So that'll be at the end. So yeah, great. Some of you found the box. Thanks, Angela. And hello, Tim, and so on. So yeah, so that's great. You guys have the box there. You can interact with me as we go. But me, just really quickly, I've been investing in real estate since 2001. I started with 2 properties that first year as a partnership with the guy that I was dating at the time, and I went on to marry that guy. And then we bought 5 in the next year after that. And from that point forward, we've purchased anywhere from 2 to 11 properties each year since 2001, with just a couple of exceptions. I'm also an entrepreneur and the #1 Amazon best-selling author of More Than Cash Flow. And over the last 13, I guess it's been 13 years, yep, I've invested in 6 different cities in Canada, including Toronto, Vancouver, Kelowna, Niagara Falls, of course, where we live right now, Nanaimo, which is on the west coast on Vancouver Island. And I'm pretty familiar with a lot of other markets in Canada thanks to coming up on 5 years as a real estate investment coach. So I've gotten to know a lot of markets through also my travels as I've done a lot of speaking and workshops. My website, Revenue, was voted twice by readers of Canadian Real Estate Wealth magazine as the best real estate investing website in Canada. And I've been doing a lot of speaking across Canada and appearing on CTV and Global TV fairly regularly. Nanaimo, BC is my home where I live with my husband Dave and my 2 dogs. And something that was pretty cool recently, I was awarded the honor of being one of the top 20 under 40 on Vancouver Island for business achievements and community contributions. So there you go. That's all I'm really going to say about me. It's not about me tonight. It's about you and helping you. So let me just kick it off. Oh, and I didn't even show you my picture while I was talking about myself. So there we go. Hold on. So it's hard when you have to operate and look at the questions and see Lincoln and Paul, and lots of people are talking to me in the box as well. So I forgot. So that's me, and that is my book, which I hope everyone on this call has grabbed a copy, because it's absolutely the best education you can get for, depending on where you buy it, anywhere from $20 to $25. I packed it full of stories that you probably will enjoy reading and be grateful that you didn't live through, and lessons to help you through. So there's the book and me. So now I have a couple questions for you. So question 1, do you have unlimited funds to do as many deals as you want? This is interactive, so feel free to let me know in the box on the right side. You can say hello and say, do you have as many funds as you need? Right? Melissa's saying not yet. Maria, oh, thank you. She said she's 75% through the book and loves the frankness. I wrote the book like I talk, so you'll find that tonight. You'll be able to tell that I actually am the one that wrote it. Sounds very much like me, I've been told. All right. So yeah, a lot of people saying no, not yet, not even close. No, no, no. So there you go. Second question, do you think a bank will always give you a mortgage? Yep, Mark, Melissa, lots of people chiming in saying no, probably not, might definitely no, John, Valerie, yeah, there you go. So good news, guys, you are in the right place, because this is what I'm going to help you with. And as I'll talk a little bit about the fact that at one point when I had left my job and my husband had left his job, we were full-time real estate investors and we're just getting our education business. Well, we really didn't have any income coming in from it at all. It was just a website and newsletter at the time. The banks didn't want to fund us at all. So all our deals at that time had to be funded other ways. And that was also when we were the most aggressive in our growth. That was when we were buying 10 or 11 houses a year. So I've got lots to share with you on this subject, so you're in the right place if you're answering no to these questions. If you're answering yes, then maybe you're looking for joint venture partners, and maybe this is a good chance for you to understand both sides of the equation. I just want to mention this because a lot of people don't always think about it when we're talking about raising money, but the fact is what we teach impacts your entire life. So we're talking about raising money, but it's also really kind of a philosophy or an approach to your interactions, especially when you're negotiating or trying to influence. And this was an email that we got from Ian, who was one of our clients last year. And he said, it occurred to me how many tactics I had used in that negotiation that I would have never previously before being associated with the two of you. Everything from pushing back to establishing myself as an authority and a prize to be won. That negotiation alone will earn me an extra $20,000 next year, but more importantly, it will be doing the work I want to do and on my terms and timeframes. So he's referring nothing to do with real estate. He's referring to a work contract negotiation. So he's a contract worker, and he negotiated his annual contract and was able to get $20,000 more, and he reduced his hours and got to kick some of the work he didn't like doing to the side. And he credited that with the raising money training, which basically is like negotiation training, although we do talk specifically about the different money strategies. So I just wanted to share that with you because I've heard this from so many people. It applies in your real estate business to tenants, to buyers, to sellers, of course to raising money. But in your own life, wherever there's kind of negotiations or or you're really trying to impact and influence somebody, this will help you. All right. Now, if you've read my book, and I saw quite a few comments. I saw quite a few comments. Somebody said the book is brutally honest, which is fantastic. I love it. Oh, and hey, we've got somebody from Sydney, Australia. How fantastic is that? Hey, welcome. What time is it over in Sydney? All right, so welcome, Bella from Sydney. So if you've read my book, More Than Cash Flow, you already know a little bit about this, but in case you haven't, I'll just give you a really quick background on how we got to the point of raising money. In the last 4 years in particular, we've really taken our real estate investment business to an entirely new level. We've been investing since 2001, my husband and I. Many of you are familiar, so you probably already know that I wanted to get into real estate to get my money working for me. That was my original plan, was just to create options for myself in the future. I was going back to school to do my MBA, so it wasn't like I wasn't trying to create a career for myself. I just wanted to make sure I had options, because I already knew that I didn't want to work for other people forever. I wanted to have choices. And at that time, I was 24. And I had this kind of dream plan where I called it Freedom 35. My plan was that I wanted to build a strong enough portfolio that by the age of 35, I could quit if I wanted. And I quit my job at the age of 31, just in case you're wondering. But so Dave got on board. He thought this was a great plan, and he'd already bought an investment property with his mom years before that. So the concept of real estate investing wasn't new for him. After we did a couple of deals, we were completely out of cash, and I was now back in school doing my MBA. So I didn't qualify for financing, and I was spending money on school, not making any. But we had the bug, and we wanted to do more deals. So we thought, and we had some late night infomercials help us with this. We thought the best way was going to be the no money down, no bank required path. And we took some training programs, which I talk about fairly candidly in my book. We took the training programs and discovered that, we can find motivated sellers and we can do deals for no money down, but they can lead to some very challenging situations. And, we created some pretty big problems for ourselves. One of them was, of course, one of the most dramatic stories in the book, which I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't read it, but it was a property that basically got turned into a crack house, and we ended up having to go to court and plead guilty to fire code violations and made the local paper, as you can see with this headline. So it was very challenging, and that was just one property of many that we bought for no money down, and turned out to be very, very challenging, because generally a motivated seller is motivated because they can't sell their problem property any other way. So they're motivated to work with you. Not always, and there's different kinds of motivation, but generally that's what you're faced with. So we had to dig in, fix the messes we made. We also had to figure out how we could do deals without needing our own cash or without us qualifying for bank financing, but also so that we could buy the kind of quality properties that attracted the kind of quality tenants that we actually wanted to work with. And so it was an evolution of years, literally, as we cleaned up the mess and learned to raise money and evolved. But in 2003 was when we did our first joint venture deal. And from that point forward, we focused on using a lot of other kinds of money, like private money, RRSP mortgages, and of course, JV partners, with deals structured in a variety of ways. The last 4 years in particular, since I quit my job in November of 2008 and got Dave to do the same in early 2009, we really, and that was when we ramped up our buying, because we wanted to fill the income gap that was left when I left my six-figure salary. So we really worked hard to fill it, and we found that joint venture partners tended to be the way that we were able to fill most of the gaps that were left and buy property a month for, basically we did that pace for just over 3 years. So I'll get to more details on what happened though when we went to ramp up, because we learned, we ran into a very significant challenge after 2008, because the whole market shifted in 2008, and then the lending landscape changed in early 2009. So even though we had been raising money from other sources from 2008 3 on, we actually didn't have a good grasp of what it takes to raise money. So I'll talk about that in a minute. So the specifics of what we're going to cover tonight, I'm going to give you the exact steps we take to find our investors. This is the 7-step process to getting that money funnel going. Then we're going to talk about 4 ways to fund your deals. So joint ventures is absolutely one of them, but there's 3 other ways, and I want to make sure you know about them because when you start raising money, you will uncover these other ways as well. And I'm going to share 5 tips and tactics to raise money without feeling awkward and salesy, because that was the one big thing that we found was we were very uncomfortable coming to people with an agenda. And we strained some relationships. We actually damaged one to the point where we don't speak anymore because the approach put people off, and being assertive when you're trying to raise money, especially if you approach people you know, which I'll talk about that later tonight too. I don't recommend you work with your friends or family. I recommend you use them to find people with money. Because there's a lot of things that can go wrong. But we'll talk about that. I'll give you 5 very specific tips and tactics to raise money. So lots to cover. I'm just going to quickly scroll over here because you guys have been chatting away, which I love. And lots going on. Yes, we talk about the problems. Okay, yeah, and somebody's asking about whether this will be recorded. So I am recording it. I haven't had the best of luck in the past sharing my recorded webinars, but as long as technology is kind to me tomorrow, I will be sending out a recording. But I can't promise it, so take good notes. Take as good of notes as you possibly can, because I can't promise that I'll get that recording out. It's been 50-50. I should have better tech support, I suppose, but anyways. All right, so today, I want to talk just very briefly about what happened in 2008, 2009, because it's very important to this whole system and process that we have today. So in 2009, after we'd both left our jobs and we were doing this full time, we had to ramp up, as I said, to fill that income gap. We had a partner who had qualified for a deal that we closed on in early 2009. So we closed on 2 properties in early 2009, and one of them was with him, and it was no problem. And he was keen to do another one and said maybe even 2 if we found good ones. So we set to work and we found these 2 properties. And everything looked great. We were really excited about them for a variety of reasons. We sent him an email and he replied and said, yep, sounds great. I'm in Africa, so I can't get the mortgage broker the final papers. I know they have most of it, but they need some updates, but I'll get it to him when I get back. Long story short, when he got back, the mortgage broker said he no longer qualifies for financing. The programs that had been in place just a few months earlier were gone. The lending landscape totally changed in 2009. That combined with the fact that his stock portfolio also decreased in value, I think by 20 or 25% in a very short period of time. Those 2 things gave him cold feet. And we were just a couple days from having to lift conditions, and he didn't want to do this and couldn't qualify for financing. So we had to find new partners. To buy these 2 properties, we needed about $800,000. So it wasn't a small amount of money. But we'd been raising money since 2003, so we were pretty confident that we could do it. And we reached out to about 100 contacts in 2 days. And these are all people we know, friends, family, parents of our friends, and so forth. Many of them actually ignored us, and we personalized emails, we called and left voicemails, we tried to set up meetings. A few, we had about 20 some meetings. A few actually said, no, you know what, this isn't for me, but a dozen said maybe. Nobody said yes. And we had to face a pretty harsh reality that what we had been doing for years to fund our deals wasn't working anymore. We realized that people had largely been investing in market conditions. You know, that was when the market was going up and up and up, and people couldn't throw money fast enough at real estate. So people were investing in the concept of being in the real estate market, not so much investing in us and our ability to raise money. And it took a Herculean effort and a little bit of luck, but we actually did end up funding these 2 deals. We had to delay the lifting of conditions by a week, which we were able to do, thankfully. But we were able to raise the money and close on these 2 deals. But when that was done, we worked hard to completely revamp our raising money process because we didn't ever want to have to go through that again. And it wasn't overnight, but looking back, it didn't take that long before we had a wait list of people ready to do deals with us. And we could make offers with confidence, knowing that we had at least 2 people, often 3, that would partner with us on a deal like that. And bit by bit, we also started to find a lot of people that wanted to be our private lenders or use their RSPs on a mortgage. We didn't do things perfectly, and that's actually what makes us great teachers, is because we tried it a lot of ways and found ways that really don't work, found partnerships that really don't work, and I'm not afraid to tell you that they aren't working or they didn't work. So I share that with you. So we didn't do things necessarily perfectly, not that well. We have some troublesome partners, but we were able to set ourselves up to buy close to a house a month for just over 3 years. And the only reason we slowed down is because we were getting tired and our portfolio had reached the point that we needed it to reach. So we slowed down. But even cooler to me than the fact that we were able to do this is we're able to teach people, and it's repeatable by others. We've had people take our training and walk away to raise money. We had one person walk away and fund three very unique deals that were $2.5 million each, and he funded them, all 3 of them, after he did this training with us. And one of my favorite stories recently is one of our clients that is in Ontario, where he's in a market where the houses are just under $100,000 that he's buying, and he needed $76,000, and he wanted 100% financing to buy this property for $76,000, and he wanted a 15-year mortgage from a private lender. And we were a little skeptical, but we taught him how to do it and walked him through it. And it wasn't even 2 or 3 weeks later, and he called and he said that he got the $76,000 in a conversation he had sitting in a pickup truck outside of a Tim Hortons. That one makes me laugh every time. So it's repeatable, which is important for you guys because I'm going to be sharing it, and you want to know that you can take it away and work with it. And I know there's a couple people on the line as well, and I'll probably end up calling on at least one of them. I already got his permission, who's used our system. And in fact, Tim, he just funded a deal, I believe last night, that is with a JV partner it's a second deal with this JV partner. So, and that's from learning what we teach here. Now, before we figured this out, we would not look for deals because we didn't have cash yet, so that would slow us down. Or even worse, sometimes we went for a deal anyway, and then in a panic state, we'd run around trying to get the cash. And if anybody else has ever done that, that's when you're willing to sell your soul almost to fund the deal. And it's not a good position to be in. You'll always give up more than you need to give up if you're panicking trying to raise money, if you've gone for that deal anyways, which means less money in your pocket. And if you're doing a long-term buy and hold strategy, 50-50 is fair, but when you start to give somebody 60% maybe to fund it, or you put in half the money, they put in half the money just to get the deal done, and you hold it for 8 or 9 years, as we did with one of our properties that we just sold last year, actually 2 properties that we sold last year. It was a ton of work for us to have put in half the cash. Well, we didn't quite put in half, we were close to half, but it was an absolute ton of work over the course of that time, and our partner didn't even see the houses for the first 5 years of owning them. Now, we make a lot of choices in our business. For us, it's really about living a life we love. So as I said, we could do way more deals if we wanted to. We have people actually actively pestering us monthly. Have you got a deal for me yet? Have you got a deal for me yet? So we could continue the expansion, but we got into real estate to create freedom. And doing deals every month, it's busy. It's a ton of work. So we alter things. We're always evolving and looking, okay, is this moving us closer to that ideal day that we want to live, or is it not? And doing a ton of deals, once you've got a level that's holding you where you want to have financial income and your future wealth, it's up to you if you want to keep expanding. But the big thing is we know how to create money, and we know we can tackle big problems. Now, the first thing that's on the screen here that I really want you to get is, and I think it's one of the most important things I can share with you, although a lot of people will argue with me all day long on this, but you can forget the rational reasons why people will work with you or won't work with you. They decide quickly and then spend the rest of the time rationalizing their decision. I spend a lot of my spare time studying influence and persuasion. Actually, it's funny because Dave is the one that has a master's in psychology and I have a master's in business. And I really think I should have been the one that did psychology and he should have been the one that did business, because I am way more fascinated by psychology than he is, and he loves numbers and I don't. But anyway, the one thing that I've read over and over is that people want to believe they're rational, but we absolutely aren't. And there's one study that I keep coming back to that Columbia University and Stanford University did in 1993, and I won't go over it in long detail, for many people aren't as interested in this as I am, but here's a couple of key points, and you might even want to write these down to remember them. When people are asked about such hot topics as nuclear weapons, they respond with opposite opinions depending on how it's phrased. So nuclear weapons, pretty hot topic, and they respond with opposite opinions depending on how the question is phrased. Another one, when asked their opinion on how easy getting a divorce should be in the U.S., this is a U.S. Study, obviously, Columbia and Stanford, but when asked their opinion on how easy getting a divorce should be in the U.S., more than 40% chose the last option of 3, regardless of which option was offered last. So they tested every spot, or every answer in each spot, and more people picked 3, no matter what it was. 40% always picked 3. So depending on how the question is worded and where you give your options, you think that's going to be more applicable than your dances with spreadsheets, because real estate investors in particular are guilty of thinking that just because they have a deal with good numbers, they're going to find investors. And I call it dances with spreadsheets because Dave in particular, you know, he spends hours running numbers on the spreadsheets, which is great because I can rest assured that we're covered. You know, the details have been taken care of. But that's only a tiny, tiny percentage of what actually gets you the money you need for your deals. It's really important that you know it's a good deal. But when you speak to your investors, most of the time you're not going to convey very many details to them. And also, I want you to remember these studies because it will remind you that people's thoughts and opinions are molded by the questions they are asked, and a lot of times their opinions are created in the moment and really don't have a rational backing. And people are also fairly automatic in their behavior. So there's a lot to learn. And you know, the one overlying thing I can tell you is that being confident in what you do makes all the difference. So if you're not sure about your market, you're not sure about your strategy, those things will come through in your conversations. You'll be lacking confidence. And you know, the good news though are those are things you can build, right? Building confidence in your area, becoming an expert, having a kick-ass team. These are things that you can build on, and then as you believe it, the confidence shines through too. But there's one other thing that makes it all work. Any guesses? See if anybody guesses. All right, let me see. Nobody's guessing. Okay, I've got you stumped. Or maybe I've bored you already. We're only well, I guess we're half an hour in. Maybe I've worn you guys out already. Or you're just busy writing everything down. That's what it is. You guys are busy taking notes so you can't guess. That's what's going on, right? Oh, good looks. That's a good guess, actually, Lincoln. And interestingly enough, probably not surprisingly, good-looking people are perceived to be smarter and better at their jobs than someone who is less attractive. But and so that does tell you that grooming matters, what you wear matters, absolutely. But that's not the answer. The answer is nothing works without trust. Nobody's going to part with their cold hard cash if they don't trust you. The problem you have to overcome is that people trust for the wrong reasons. So you can't worry about the fact that someone should or should not trust someone. In fact, this is actually one of my pet peeves, and I don't want to take up too much precious time complaining about this, but one of my pet peeves is the trust that people give celebrities, whether it's somebody, a famous author, or somebody they've seen on a TV show, or whatever it is. It drives me crazy because I've seen people take courses and sign up for things that are actually based on lies, and I'm certain that the main reason they're doing it without questioning is because they are unquestionably trusting somebody because of their celebrity status. But anyway, That's the dark side of trust. Trust, it's not rational again, and it's a big subject, but there's some things that you can actually do to build trust quickly, and it will help you massively. So I've got some ideas and thoughts because I know that trust has been a big part of our success. We create trust, and we've done it in quite a few ways. And a lot of people, one of our partners, we ask her questions. She's like, I trust you guys 100%. I signed up with you guys because I trust you, and I still trust you. So do what you think is best. And that is the foundation of our success in raising money. So what can you do to create trust? Well, authority is one thing. So think about this one for a minute. And again, all of these have a dark side. I have a couple dark side examples, but I try to stay on the positive side. I'm teaching you this stuff knowing that you will use it for good and not for evil. I can say that because you're part of the revenue community or the Canadian real estate wealth community, so you'll use this for good. But authority is one of those kind of scary things, actually. Think about it. When you go to the doctor and they prescribe something to you, and this is changing, so this is maybe not the best example anymore because we're questioning our medical community and some of the prescription drugs that get passed out like candy. But generally speaking, you go to the doctor and they prescribe something to you. They tell you what's wrong, and you just trust what they say because it comes from an authority. And a lot of that also comes from uniforms and coats, by the way, like in this case, a lab coat, but uniforms establish authority. So the security guard really has practically no authority in most cases, yet that uniform, that security guard uniform, creates some authority. So what can you do as a real estate investor to create authority? One of the best things is to get in front of a room, right? Start speaking. That creates a lot of authority because people, rightly or wrongly, assume that because you're at the front, you have an authority. You are an authority, and that's why you're speaking, I should say. All right. Affinity. Shared experiences. Where's my picture? There it is. Shared experiences or backgrounds establish trust almost instantly. And I won't go into how crazy this is, but it's really, really strong in the States. A guy that I grew up with, a good friend of mine, he went to Yale, and that Yale-Harvard rivalry is incredible. If the company that he and a couple other guys started, they've hired some people that aren't Yale, but the majority of people they've hired are from Yale. It's just one of those things that if you have common background with somebody, you'll be able to connect with them much better. So think about this in terms of your raising money efforts. The groups that you belong to, and affinity, I'm going to talk about a familiarity in a minute, so that's going to be more the groups, but some of those things that create affinity. So universities is one of them, where you originated from. Like, I'm a small town Alberta girl. I meet somebody else from a small town in Alberta, and we always have a connection. Because there's so many similarities between these little towns that there's a connection there. So if you're both from Poland, right, there's going to be that connection. So that affinity will help you. So think about where you share a background with somebody and how you can connect with them and start letting them know that you're a real estate investor looking for money. Trusted by others, also called second-party transferal. You ever wonder, so here's where it's used in the dark side of things. You ever wonder how someone like Bernie Madoff can create a $36 billion Ponzi scheme? How did he get those high net worth people? And I'm not saying high net worth people are necessarily the smartest people in the world, but they were smart enough to, in many cases, they built their wealth. Some of it was family money, but regardless, how did he get people with big bucks to part with it? It was, if you follow I haven't read a ton, but I've read a little bit to understand it, and it was almost totally based on affinity. He was trusted by others. So let's say, who do we have here? We'll just use some names from here so I always make up weird names like Francesca, which actually, if there's a Francesca on the line, I'm sorry, it's not necessarily that weird of a name. Phew, I don't see anybody with that name on there. Okay. So let's say George goes to the highfalutin New York country club that costs $100,000 to get your membership. Probably costs $100,000 just to get your membership, and then there's $50,000 a year fee to be a member. So it's high net worth club. And George gets in there and he decides to invest with Bernie. Next thing you know, everybody else at the country club is investing with Bernie because they say, hey, George is a smart guy and he gave Bernie $1 million, so I'm going to give him $1 million too, right? So being trusted by others. So that's the dark side of it. The powerful side of it, or the positive side of it, is this is how we've raised the majority of money. Our friends and family know us and trust us, and they refer their friends and family to us. And that trust that their friends and family have in them gets transferred to us. That's why I said trusted by others is also called second-party transferal. I hope you're writing this part down because this is our #1 source of funds. Our friends and family have trust with their friends and family, and that trust gets referred over to us through the referrals. Okay. Credibility. So you can establish credibility a lot of ways. One of the ways that I work with a lot of our clients on is getting into magazines. I've actually been in 4 books now, so I'm sorry, Mark Loeffler and Ian Szabo, for not having your other book pictured here, Fix and Flip. So I was given author credits on one of these and interviewed for the other 3. And that's one way to establish credibility. Getting featured in Canadian Real Estate Wealth magazine is another. And since this is a webinar largely originated from Canadian Real Estate Wealth magazine, another way to mention is their upcoming investor awards. I'm not sure if the nominations are closed already, but if they're not, getting your name in this year or next year is a great way to start to establish credibility. Hey, I'm a finalist in the investor awards. So things like that will really help establish credibility. It's basically a third party saying how great you are, or using your expertise inside of their magazine, feature, etc. Celebrity, I already kind of talked about that. It's again, has dark and bright, and it's harder. I mean, I'm not sure how you get to be a Donald Trump, necessarily a step-by-step plan to be as famous as Donald Trump or the Kardashians, but celebrity sells. It absolutely sells. So if you are in a position where you have celebrity, you have the ability to become a celebrity, that can create trust for some odd reason. Also, good opportunity for you to stop and question celebrities you may automatically be trusting without any real reason to trust them. All right, trying to get my button here. Familiarity. So here's another one you want to absolutely make a note of. Friends and family, where you might see them at a club, hockey team. It seems like I know a lot of people who have raised money from somebody on their hockey team, us included. Not my hockey team, I don't play hockey, but Dave does. Soccer, your kids' swimming lessons, wherever you see somebody on a regular basis, that familiarity creates trust. You're going to trust somebody you've seen before and see often way faster than you're going to trust a complete stranger. That's just the way it goes. So again, when you're raising money, starting with people that you have some sort of familiarity with is going to really help. And just reaching out, letting everybody know that you're a real estate investor and giving them the opportunity to ask you questions so that you can find out who's interested, that's really going to be a great way to go. And this is a picture of me and my family in Cabo San Lucas, actually, Mexico. That's my charming father. It's funny. Okay, and I'm going to put this up here. I won't get into it too far, but a lot of people recommend that you raise money from friends and family. It's absolutely the easiest place. If you have friends and family with money, it will be the easiest. It's like the low-hanging fruit. So you can do it. However, it's the most emotionally expensive. And I'm going to knock on wood when I say this, we've never lost anybody money. And yet we have strained and really challenged some relationships because we've raised money or tried to raise money from people. So we don't do it anymore. We don't work with friends and family. My parents were part of our corporation, and we bought them out. We're almost done buying them out now, just to separate the boundaries or create boundaries. I guess we'll go with create boundaries. It's challenging. It's emotionally expensive. And our preference is to work with people that are kind of that second, they're friends of our friends. It's just a much better way. It's also a lot easier to leverage, right? Eventually, with some exceptions, of course, some really wealthy friends and family, but most cases you'll run out of friends and family that you can raise money from. And when you go to raise money from external people, you actually really won't know how, and you probably won't have the confidence you need to do it. Whereas if you start with external people and then find that some family and friends might be a good fit, you have the confidence, you can set up those business relationships appropriately, and you know how to do it. But I won't go into a big, long lecture. That's more than enough already, I'm sure. Okay, and I see a few people have raised their hands, and what I'll ask at this point is I will absolutely, at the end of all of this training, I will absolutely open up the lines and allow you guys to speak. But for now, I really want to cover as much content as I can, because my goal is to be done the content by 7 o'clock Pacific, which would be 10 o'clock for the Eastern folks, which I know starts to get late. And then I'll open it up for questions at that point. So I really want to keep powering through this. If you have something that you're not sure about or you want to add, I'm encouraging you, if you weren't here earlier, to type it in the box on your computer, and I'm trying to keep an eye on it. But if you type something earlier and I haven't commented on it, Paul, thank you. Paul's saying some really nice things. But now I lost my train of thought, Paul. Oh, type it in. I'll try and keep an eye on this, and then I will, at the end, we'll chat with you. So if you're raising your hand, I'll get to you, but it won't be till after we're done the content. Okay, so there's lots of things you can do to create trust knowing these things. And actually, just a little side note, because I'm really excited about it, I'm going to be launching an entire, I'm still sculpting exactly what it's going to look like, but it's going to be, I'm going to work with a small group of people in kind of a mastermind training group to help them, and I'm calling it Elite Investors. And basically, it's going to be all around creating authority. I've helped some people in Canada build real estate investing clubs and start their own, and we're starting now to create education-based platforms, get into magazines, get published, start creating videos, the whole 9 yards. And it's amazing the opportunities that come to you when you start stepping out in that fashion. It's not right, this is not right for the majority of investors. This is for a very, that's why I'm calling it elite investor. This is really for the kind of people who want to move this towards full-time. So they really want to have a steady stream of money, a steady stream of opportunities, and possibly even turn some of it into like a revenue type business, right? An educational platform that you offer training and coaching, et cetera. So that'll be launching in the fall, and I'm really excited about it because I love working on it. I know I've got Tim Collins on the line, who I've been working with to create studentrentalinvesting.com, and probably when we open up the lines and do questions, I'll probably call on Tim to share a little bit about his money raising, but also his new business venture and how it's helping with the money raising too. Okay. Now, the brain. I won't spend too much time on this because our brains are obviously extremely complicated, but you have to understand at least this much when you're talking to people, because ultimately our brains are lazy and our brain doesn't want to work unless it has to, right? So, so this is the filtering system of what's going on in the brain when you're talking to somebody. And I'm putting out a really funny video on, well, okay, maybe really funny is overselling it. It's a little funny. I put some humor in this video to talk about these 4 things that the brain is looking at things when they filter. And my chat box is in the way here. So when you're talking to somebody, before it decides if it's even really going to pay attention and listen to what you're saying, so you're sitting across from that potential investor and you're chatting, they're going, can I eat it? And I really hope the answer is no. Can I mate with it? Totally up to you what you're going for, but if you're trying to raise money, the answer is probably not yes. You're probably not going for a yes there. Should I run from it? Well, you don't want your potential investors running from you. So you have to pass these filters by not scaring them and catching the attention by being new or interesting. And I'll spend a little bit more time shortly on being new and interesting and what you can do. But basically, if you come in like a salesperson, they will filter you like a salesperson, and they might make a lot of assumptions. And for a long time, people thought we were real estate investors. Our friends and family thought we were real estate agents. So we were not doing a good job of getting past this filter because people didn't get that we were the ones buying the houses and renting them out. They just thought we worked in real estate, and they translated that into a real estate agent. So we weren't doing a good job of getting past this filter, because that's the exact problem that comes up. People just kind of tune you out and make assumptions about what you're saying or what you're going to say. So I'll come to, when I get to the tips, I'll get specifically into that and how you can be new and interesting and get past the filter system, you know, not be boring. But first, I want to give you the 7 steps, to funding your deals. And I'm going to just bring them all up on the screen, give you a second to write them down, and then I'll come back and go through each of them in a little bit more detail, okay? Okay, so now you have a little bit of the mindset piece in place. Number 1, your first step is, who is your ideal money person? And when we started doing this, everything changed for us, because up until that point, which embarrassingly was probably early 2009, late 2009, we were just looking for people with money. That was our criteria, somebody with money, not very stringent. And we weren't even looking for somebody with money that wanted to invest it in real estate. So we had to go to all the work to convince them that real estate was the place to put their money, and then try to convince them to do it with us. So it was a really big uphill battle. When we started getting clear on who we wanted to work with, one of the key things that we started doing was focusing on people who wanted to invest in real estate but didn't have the time, energy, expertise, didn't want to put in the effort, right? They want to invest in real estate, but they don't have that piece, which we had. Right? That's number 1. Number 2 was that we really wanted to find people who had the financial capability of doing more than one deal, because up until that point we were cobbling money together, right? 30,000 here, 30,000 there, that person has 50,000, so then we try and fill in the gap for the rest, and it was a mess. It was just a pain and a mess. When we started focusing on people who had, it felt limiting, right? I won't lie, it felt limiting, but the beauty is you find a person who has the financial capacity to do a deal every 6 months, which we have one of those, and right, that's 2 deals a year funded right there. And for 6 deals, yes, so for 3 years, 6 deals, she's, you know, like clockwork, always has the funds and the financial capability of doing another deal with us. So focusing on your ideal money person makes it so much easier to filter out people that you might have wasted a lot of time on in the past, and just focus on finding the people who will make your whole process easier going forward. The other one was that we really didn't want to work with people who wanted to be active real estate investors. And we worked with someone in the past. I won't go into it because I'm getting long already, because I have so much to talk to you guys about. But one of the people wanted to be an active investor, and we ended up, that's the only partnership that we ever had to split up, was because he wanted to be active and it just wasn't working out. My family's saying of too many cooks in the kitchen and dinner gets burnt really came to light. So we don't want to work with active investors. We are the experts. We want to be the ones making the majority of the decisions and have the other person trust us that we're making the right decision. Okay, so those are 3 of the things. If you're not sure who your ideal money person is, the easiest way to do this is to write down who you don't want, right? What you don't want in a partner, and then reverse engineer out what you do want. Number 2, connect with them. And this is largely about where you're connecting with them. So referrals, again, our number 1 source. Real estate club meetings, we've found RSP lenders. That's a great place to find RSP lenders. We found a joint venture partner as well at a real estate club meeting, but a lot of people at real estate club meetings looking for JV partners, so it's not the best place for that. But private lenders, RSPs, and opportunities, great place. Sports, fantastic source, common interest. So whatever, if you're not into sports, I'm sure you have hobbies. If you don't, it's time to get some. Or at least get your kids involved in something so you can connect with their the parents of the other kids. So that's connecting with them. Screen them. One of the biggest mistakes, actually, it was one particular woman. She came to one of our, we have held live workshops in the past, and she came to the workshop, and she had already had, I think, 7 joint venture partners. So we were kind of like, why are you here? You know, it seems like you know what you're doing. But her problem was that she was wasting hours on meetings that went nowhere. And she said a lot of people were just picking her brain, and she wasn't getting any deals done. So she wanted to find out how she could streamline her process, because she was very busy and didn't want to waste time on 2-hour meetings. So one of the key changes we helped her make was that we had her ask some critical questions before she set up a face-to-face meeting to find out if they were even going to fit into some of her basic criteria. So some of the questions we'll ask if we get somebody that's excited and says, hey, yeah, let's meet up, and we're pretty busy, we're going to be wanting to know, have you ever invested in real estate before? Why or why not? And understand that. You know, what interests you about real estate? And what are you currently investing in? Those are some of the things we're going to ask before we set up a face-to-face meeting. When you have that person that you want to meet, they fit some basic criteria, you're going to prepare. You absolutely have to prepare for that meeting. And one of the main focuses of our workshop, our Fund Your Deals in 49 Days training that we do, is on helping people craft what we call the 5 whys. So I'll give those to you really fast here. Why you? Why now? Why this market? Why this deal? And why this strategy? So why you? Why this deal? Why this market? Why this strategy? And why now? Sorry, I gave them to you in 2 different orders. I didn't have them written down. I'm just going off the top of my head. I'm just making sure you guys have to pay attention to me, right? Okay, so those are the 5 whys, and we really work hard to make sure that you understand the critical points under each of those categories, and that's part of your preparation. Part of your preparation is also doing some research on that other person. So if they've been a referral, finding out what you can from your referral person, doing what you can to prepare, right? Researching your market even further, researching the deal, looking for deals, etc. Then you meet, you get face-to-face. Your objective 100% is to get a yes or a no. If you get a maybe, you haven't done things right, okay? And I can tell you that we've had a lot of maybes, more than I want to admit, and 100% of them have never, ever come back and done a deal with us. I checked with Dave on that because I said that live one time, and then I said afterwards, did I get that right? Have we ever had an exception? And he said no. Anybody who's ever said maybe to us at the end of a meeting has never, ever come back and done a deal with us. So your goal is to get a yes or a no. It's not 100% yes, right? There's still some due diligence to do, but you don't want them walking out with a maybe. Then you do the deal, which is always easy, totally straightforward, right? Nobody ever has snags at closing or anything like that. But you do the deal, and then you leverage it into more. And I'll probably leave that piece to the end. So somebody please remind me when we're doing Q&A as to some of the ways you can leverage your deals, okay? Phew. Are you guys taking notes? Is this good? You getting some really good stuff out of this so far? I got to take a sip of water, so I'll give you a chance to type me a note. All right, good, Melissa. The kids are in bed, so she's paying full attention. Awesome. And you guys are saying it's good, very good, awesome, great. Okay, so 4 ways to fund your deals. As I said at the beginning, a lot of people focus on joint ventures. Again, that's great. We've, the bulk of the last 30 or so deals that we did in the last 4 years, the bulk were JVs. But again, we also had other things. I'll talk about some of the deals very briefly that we've done where we didn't use JVs and didn't want to. But as we were full-time, and for the first couple of years, banks wouldn't qualify us for financing. We qualify for financing again now, so we've been able to fund some of the deals with bank financing recently. But we needed partners with capital because we didn't have the capital to buy a house a month, and we needed people who could qualify for financing. And frankly, we wanted people to qualify for financing with the mortgage rates that we have today. So cheap. So we wanted that bank financing. But sometimes there's a property behind us that our neighbor approached us and wanted to sell. And it's literally behind we have a commercial, mixed-use commercial property that we run our office out of, and then we live above it. And behind it, there is a triplex, a 2-unit house with a kind of a carriage home type thing in the back. And it's literally our fences touch, like our dogs bark at her dog, and so on. And we wanted that property ourselves because there's a chance in the future that we may move lot lines around and try and give ourselves a backyard or do some development on this. This all works out to a corner piece. And we didn't want to partner on that because our own home is mixed in with that. We also bought a commercial property last year, our first pure play commercial, because we've done mixed use and we've done properties zoned for commercial, but we bought one that was a pure play commercial, a dental office. And because it was our first pure play commercial, and there's a few things that, while we knew what we were doing, we just didn't want to bring a partner in on. So we used private financing to come up to fill in the gaps of the $200 and some thousand that we needed for the down payment on that by putting in a mortgage on one of our other properties and just getting some private funding. So, and other times we wanted to do a renovation, which I'll give you an example of in a minute. So there's lots of ways to fund your deals, and you want to have lots of choices because you don't always want to be relying on JVs, as great as they are for many reasons. There's also limitations to them, right? We have a couple properties right now that we would like to get out of, but it's really not a good time to sell in Nanaimo, and it's not really going to maximize, it's not even not really, it's not going to maximize our partner's return to exit right now, and they're not anxious to exit. So it's not really fair to them to exit right now. So we're kind of stuck in a couple deals that we don't necessarily want to be in anymore. That's a limitation of a joint venture. Joint ventures also are more work, right? We're creating, it's tax time, we're in the middle of doing all our JV reports. That's taking up a ton of time for us, our bookkeeper, and our accountant. Okay, 4 ways we're funding our deals. Seller financing, VTBs. I'm not going to get into it too much tonight except to say the best way to get a VTB is to ask, right? Will you carry financing? If you come across estate sales, that these days that seems to be the best opportunity to get a VTB. But other real estate investors might also give you smaller VTBs and so on. Private money. Private money is different than hard money. A lot of people think of hard money. Hard money is more loaned professionally, right? People will higher rate, shorter term, so you're looking at a lot of times 12 to 18%, 6 months, 12 months. If you're a flipper, you might have a hard money lender you work with, but I personally prefer private money. It's just money from an individual, so much flexibility. You set the terms, and I think I probably have a slide coming up, so I won't go into too much more detail. RRSP mortgages, we spend 2 hours in our Fund Your Deals in 49 days covering how to do it, the rules around it, the documents. But bottom line is you can use RRSP mortgages for a lot of things, but there are some rules that you need to know around them. Our favorite use of RRSP mortgages is to put second mortgages on properties we own to access capital if it doesn't make sense to refinance. So if you have a large refinance penalty, for example, it makes more sense to put a second RSP mortgage on it to access the capital in that property and use that for a down payment somewhere else, or use that for renovation funds or whatever it is you need. And of course, joint ventures, which our model nowadays is that we look to somebody who puts in the initial investment capital required, so typically about $70,000, give or take, and they go on title, qualify for financing, and we own the property 50-50. So we do all the work. We're the experts. We know the market. We look for the deals, negotiate the deals, and then oversee everything. Other than the little bit of paperwork at the beginning, they really don't have any work they need to do going forward. We take care of everything. Okay, so I kind of covered this already, so I'm going to zip through it so we can get to the tips and have time to spend on the tips. Yep, when to use, when you need options and flexibility. We had actually a coaching client that we were working with here on Vancouver Island, and they had the money for a down payment, but they didn't qualify for financing. They're both self-employed and practice the income minimization technique. So they write off everything possible, and they don't qualify for financing. She was struggling with this, and she didn't want a JV partner. And we said, well, you could try to ask for a VTB, and so we coached her through that. And she actually ended up getting a VTB for the mortgage, the same rate the banks would lend at. So I think it was like 2.89%. If you can imagine, she got 80% loan to value VTB for less than 3%. She kicked our butt on anything we've ever got for a VTB. I think our best VTB was 5%. Although it was 100% of the value of the home at the time. Private money, I covered what that is already. When to use, lots of opportunity to use it. We've used it when we need quick closings. If you're buying a foreclosure, private money is an awesome way to go. Gives you lots of control over terms and more flexibility. So our client that we mentioned, he's buying, that I mentioned raised the money in the pickup truck. He buys the houses, that $76,000 was to buy a house that's worth about $90,000. He puts a little bit of reno work into it and just rents it out, and he holds them for 15 years, so they pay off. That's his model. He's been doing it for a while, and just had run out of sources of money for it, which is why we were helping him. But his thing is the banks won't loan to 100%. He doesn't want to have to put money down for that because he's putting a little bit of money in for renos. So it gives him more control over the terms, more flexibility. He doesn't have to worry about it. He's got a mortgage for 15 years. RRSP mortgages are a form of private money, can be held in a self-directed RRSP. I'm not going to dive too deep into this. We do cover this in great detail in our training, as well as we cover private money and JVs and all of that in the training as well. Each is a separate module, basically. When to use, though, you can fund a whole property, and I won't get into the different rules. Different trust companies will allow you to finance them up to a different level, but generally speaking, you're going to probably go 85%, 80% of loan to value still, or some of them will go, I think, to 95% of the assessed value of the home. But you can fund the whole mortgage or a big chunk of the mortgage with RSPs, but it's hard to find people with $300,000 in their RSP. It's easier to find people with $50,000 or $80,000 that they'll put into their self-directed, which is why our favorite use of them has been to put them as a second on a property we already own and use that money for a down payment for another. Okay, joint ventures. The advantage of these is pooling resources to do a deal together. So resources can be money, time, experience, expertise, team, financeability. A lot of people focus on money, but there's a lot of things that you're bringing to the table or someone else is bringing to the table. And a joint venture really is just about pooling resources. Okay. Sorry, some people are saying, wow. So I'm hoping I'm not going too fast. Anyways, so yeah, and somebody said over leveraged is the challenge, and that's exactly it, right? You got to be careful with a lot of these strategies and putting seconds on properties. You have to make sure you're putting seconds on properties that have a lot of room to put that in. When we're putting seconds on a property, for us, I don't like taking my properties past 80% loan to value personally. We've been through a couple market cycles, started in 2001, so we enjoyed a nice ride up, but we've had a couple dips down. And I don't like my properties to be too over leveraged. When you're going to do a reno, I'm okay. That's when I'm okay doing 100% financing on a property. If you're doing a full reno and you know you're increasing a lot of value and you are putting money in for the reno. But this is your own strategy, your own risk. And I hope you're getting good advice for whatever you're doing in your portfolio. But yes, absolutely. And yeah, somebody said, I heard you can't use your own RSPs to finance your own real estate investments. No, this is arm's length. So you can't, I'm talking about going to a real estate club meeting, finding somebody that has RSPs that they can put in their self-directed RSP, and then you use that as a second mortgage on a property. Okay, your own RSPs on a real estate investment. I don't think you can do it at all on your own investments. You can actually loan your RSPs out to yourself for your own house, but it's expensive. You know, when you go through what you do and what it costs, I question the strategy, even if you did want to do that. There's a lot of reasons to me not to do it. But for using RSPs of other people, absolutely, that's what I'm talking about. Joint ventures, when to use when you need the resources that someone else has, and vice versa. Okay. Here's a couple examples. 50-50 ownership. This was actually a rent-to-own property. Sorry, voice is starting to go. So 50-50 ownership. This was a rent-to-own property that we did, and 50-50 ownership, they put in all the capital required, and in this particular property we needed to do the roof and not much inside, a little bit of paint, a few little odds and ends, but it was actually in really good condition. We got a screaming deal on this one. Partner put in funds and qualified for financing, and it was a rent-to-own, so we were cash flowing $800 a month on this property. And that's our typical deal, right? We do all the work, we oversee it. Our partner's never even seen the property, they've seen pictures, and they just trust that we're making good decisions on it and taking good care of it, and they put the money in and then they just collect the check. We do payouts every 2 months. This is another approach, so a major renovation, and it's my favorite approach for a major renovation because we used to do all kinds of different things. We would go to, you know, we'd put seconds on other properties to fund the renovation. We'd try and just borrow some money for the renovation. We'd qualify for whether we had a JV or we were doing it on our own, we put bank financing on and then we try to refinance it after the reno is done. All of those things have challenges and they're costly and definitely a pain. Anytime you go to the bank to you buy it once with the bank and then you refinance it, it's a lot of extra work, so much paperwork. So this is my favorite way. We have multiple partners now that have large lines of credit. So it's, the home equity line of credit. Their house is worth, say, in several cases, $1 million, and they've paid off almost all of the mortgage or a big chunk of it, and now they just have a $400,000, $500,000 home equity line of credit. So we'll buy the house outright with the investor's line of credit. We use their line of credit to fund the renovation. Once the renovation is done, in this particular example, this is actually the house that I filmed the video series when I added the legal suite to it. So if you haven't watched that and you're curious about the whole process, sorry, losing my voice here. If you're curious about the whole process, I have about 12 YouTube videos out there on the whole process of adding this legal suite from start to finish. But at the end, we financed it with the bank to pay off as much of that line of credit as we could and repay them some of their rental costs. And then that particular person became our joint venture partner. So we used all their cash up front to buy it, to renovate it, and then we got them to qualify for financing, and now they're our JV partner. So whatever the money that was left in the property at the end of it, that's their initial capital contribution, and now we own the property 50-50, and it's a mostly renovated home that's generating a really nice cash flow with the legal suite. So that's my favorite way, and we've done that a few times, not just to add a legal suite, but when we had to gut an entire house, we used a line of credit. Same thing with our partner. And it's such a simple way to go. I wish I could go into more detail on it, but hopefully you understand how that worked. All right, I want to get into some critical tips that will make the difference. Losing my voice early. I need my voice. So critical tips that will make the difference between a firm yes and a maybe or a no. And by the way, again, I rushed through those 4 ways. If you are interested in going into detail, having the contracts, going through structures, understanding the options for presenting private money versus JVs, etc., we go into massive detail on that. There's a 2-hour training plus live Q&A time on each of those subjects in Fund Your Deals in 49 days. And one question I will mention, because it'll probably come up, is how much do you pay for private money? And the answer is always, it depends. First of all, we never make an offer to pay somebody a percentage until I understand what kind of percentages they've been getting, what kind of percentages they're looking for, the time frame that they want to invest their money for, because all of those things make a difference in the amount you can pay, in interest in the amount you want to pay. And a lot of times, if you would offer up front, you might say 7%, when 5% might have made them happy. In other cases, you might be offering 7% when they want nothing less than 12. So you have to understand them and their needs before you ever say anything, because you really want to make sure that what you offer is a fit, and you also want to make sure that you're getting the best value and presenting it in the most favorable light. So before I get into the tips, the first thing I want to make sure that you understand, because sometimes we call it a pitch, we call it a presentation, and a lot of people will even talk about polishing a perfect presentation. But ultimately, what we're talking about is a conversation. It's about sitting in front of somebody and building a relationship. But the key here is that you have to learn to control the conversation. So it's not natural for the most part. One of the big things that we teach is responding to questions and making sure you've clarified the question, you understand the question before you answer it, right? And to also not be afraid to push a question aside and come back to it later once you know more about that other person. Because if you're too quick to answer a question, the person will get to maybe really fast, but you won't get to yes. All right, so 5 tips. Okay, so lots of questions coming in about specifically, like JV structures and stuff like that. I'll answer some of those questions at the very, very end. I will say that one of the things that I will talk about a lot in the Fund Your Deals in 49 Days training is the fact that 50-50 is how we do our deals now. We've done 75, 25, 60, 60-30-30, 60-40. We've done all kinds of splits for all kinds of reasons, and there's no one right way, and there's a lot of reasons for doing it different ways. And the reason we do 50-50 now is because this is the structure that we think is the most fair for all parties because of our massive expertise and what we're asking from the other person. But hopefully, I will try to come back to some of these questions later, but I wanted to mention that because there's 3 or 4 people asking about the JV structures. Okay, so 5 tips for money magnetism. There's a bunch of things that are happening consciously and subconsciously. That's why I spent the first kind of half an hour, 40 minutes of this call talking about the brain and what's going on, because there's so much happening when you're talking to somebody about real estate. And one of the big things is some people are probably trying to figure out if you're out to lunch, if you're crazy. And some people, when you start talking about real estate, I've seen it happen so many times, people kick into this weird kind of sales mode. And it's like they're trying to convince somebody or they're trying, it's basically you're trying to convince somebody. And it looks like they almost are a different person. And when you do that, it gets sensed by the other person. It comes across as fake. So I'm not saying you show up unprepared and wing it. You still have to practice and prepare. That's fundamental. Practice, it's funny, somebody always says to me, well, practice makes perfect. I'm like, well, make sure you're practicing the right stuff because practice only makes perfect if you're practicing good stuff. So practice makes permanent, right? Keith Cunningham, I won't get into who he is, but Keith Cunningham said practice makes permanent. So you want to make sure you are practicing, but that you're practicing the way to control the conversation. And you have to know how to explain things, and you have to understand how to keep it simple and concise and interesting. But being authentic is really important. This is why I will never hand out a script. I would never say, here's what you say, because what I say is right for me, and I'm comfortable with it, but you have to find your own words. You have to get comfortable in your own way. It's also why I think presentations don't work, because this is about building a relationship, and you can't just flip out a PowerPoint and present and expect there to be a relationship at the end of that, okay? So first tip, be interesting, interested, excited, and exciting. I'll give you an example. This one is one that I've put in recently to this because I've been to so many conferences and I meet people, and I'm sure you've met somebody like this. You introduced yourself and they're like, yeah, I'm a real estate investor, and oh yeah, this market's really tough, and they're just down, and you feel every ounce of energy you have getting sucked out of you and into that person, right? So you have to be excited about what you do, especially when you're talking to people about real estate. That doesn't mean you don't say, oh my God, I was in a house on the weekend and I got fleas, because that actually happened to me. I got fleas. Can you believe this house is foreclosed, and the people who used to live there had all kinds of animals, and you can go on like that, but you're excited. I'm excited about what I'm doing. And if you're not excited, you shouldn't be in real estate, by the way. It's not to say every day is good, because it's not, but when you're talking about real estate, you need to be interesting. You need to be interested in what you're saying and excited. There's a lot involved in this, and I unfortunately don't have time to get into it all now, but the one thing I do want to mention is it goes back to this piece about being a salesperson. So showing up, a lot of people think they need to have this perfect presentation, they need to have these beautiful marketing things, and that comes across as a salesperson. And remember that croc brain, they're not going to be interested in you if you come across in a way that is expected. If you are a revenue reader, you maybe read the email that I sent out recently that I was talking about getting a new car. And I actually have it in front of me, so I'm just going to read you this scenario in case, because I think it explains being an unexpected person, even if you are a salesperson, being unexpected and the power of it. So imagine going to your car dealership to get some work done on your car. While you're waiting for the car to be ready, you wander into the showroom to look at the latest cars. You have no intention of buying, you're just killing time. A salesman walks by and says, "Can I help you?" You say, "I'm just looking at my car," or "I'm just looking while my car gets some maintenance done. I'm not looking to buy." To your surprise, the salesman looks happy about that, and he says, "Oh, I'm glad you're not interested in buying a car today. I just started working here, and while I know cars inside and out, I'm still trying to figure out this dealership and how their system works. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions, though. I have to finish up something, but I'll be back in 10 minutes. Now you're relaxed, you look around, you get all your questions answered, and decide that you and your wife really do need a larger vehicle. than the one you have. The next thing you know, you're texting your wife to cancel the new tires on the car that's getting work done because the new tires come on the new car that you're now buying. Now, I don't know if that's exactly how it went down, but that is true. I was sitting in the maintenance, in the repair shop, while Dave was upstairs in the showroom, and he texted me and said, cancel those tires. We've got new tires coming on the new car. That is really what happened. But why does that happen? Well, it happens because the salesman takes a different approach. You know, Dave's expecting to be sold, doesn't get sold, and now he's all of a sudden buying a car. So think about ways you can be interesting, different, take things differently than people might expect, right? How do people expect you to talk about it? Yeah, I have another example, but I'll tell you in a minute. Opportunity. So a lot of people get hung up on the fact that they're asking for money. My argument is that you're not asking for money. If you're asking for money, you're sitting across from the wrong person. Because once we started focusing on finding that person who wanted to get into real estate but didn't want to put the time, effort, energy that we've put into becoming experts and getting really good at what we do, once we were sitting across from them, they were grateful to hear about this opportunity. So we weren't asking them for money, we were presenting them with an opportunity. And that's a really important distinction. And once you really get that, you're not going to feel like you're selling because people are asking you questions and they want to know, they want to see if this is going to work for them because they want to get into real estate without all of the hassles that you will deal with on some of your properties. Objections. Most people lose the deals when the objections start coming at them, and you need to get good at handling them. We spend 2 hours, so I'm going to give you 3 examples and try to help you right now, but we spend 2 hours, and I spend a lot of time coaching people one-on-one so that they can handle objections effectively, because this is where you're going to make or break it. You can kick butt on the entire conversation and present it beautifully, but if they ask you a question that causes you to backtrack or causes you to open up a whole new can of worms, it's very hard to recover from. Okay, so let's say we're talking 50-50 and the person's putting all the money in. This is a big objection that can come up a lot. But by the way, once you're really confident in what you do, you'll never hear this objection again. We haven't heard this objection in years, but we used to hear it. So I'm not sure that it's fair that I put in all the money and only get half of the deal. Well, I followed my process and I asked them a lot of questions to determine if they were a fit. And I asked them how their current investments were doing. And so here's my answer. At the start, you said you'd be thrilled with 10%. We're offering a potential of more than 15%. Are you no longer happy with that return? Okay, they're trying to make it about the equity, but ultimately it's about the return on their investment, so I'm putting it back on them. But you can only do that if you followed the process. A big one, I'd like to think it over. If you let them walk out saying that, that's basically maybe, and I already told you how maybe works out. So can't let them leave saying that. So you say, that's a good idea. This is obviously an important decision. Mind if I ask what specifically you're going to think over? Okay? People who say they want to think it over almost never will. It's just like when they say, can you send me details on that? 98% of the people will never look at the details, right? They just won't. So you need to find out what they're actually worried about. Are they worried about what their wife or husband is going to say? Did you miss something? Or maybe they just actually needed you to say that because now they're like, oh, they're pretty confident, so now I'm feeling better, okay? Which goes on subconsciously. Okay. One more. I think maybe it's not a good time to buy. Prices are going to go down. First, you're going to say, why do you think that is the case? And then you kind of pause for a second, see what they're doing, how they're reacting. And if they're not really moving yet, they're not saying much, then you say, did you read that somewhere? I'd love to read the article. And often they'll say, yeah, it was in the Globe and Mail yesterday. And you could say, oh, well, what exactly did it say? Oh, well, they were saying they expect Canadian housing's overvalued by 20%. I think I saw that headline today. And your response could be, well, the Canadian housing market's a pretty big market. The weather here is very different than the weather in Toronto, just like real estate, right? So maybe in certain areas it's overvalued by 20%, but here where I'm investing in Nanaimo, and I've been investing here for 12 years, here's what's going on. Here's a couple key points. Here's 2 reasons why I'm super excited about investing in Nanaimo, right? That's how you handle it. A lot of investors, when they say this, they're going to kick into the fundamentals, right? This is one thing that gets drilled into you by a lot of training companies, is knowing the fundamentals of the market, which is absolutely important, but you don't need to share them, right? You don't need to share them. In fact, you don't want to try to convince them, because as soon as you try to convince them that prices are not going to go down, they actually start to believe they're going to go down even more. So the worst thing you can do is turn around and start telling them all the reasons why the prices won't go down. Bottom line is, you really don't know. It could happen. So rather than try and argue it, understand their perspective and then explain the reality, okay? Oops. All right, big one here. Money is not a source of power unless you let it be. Money is not the prize. You are. A lot of people are so focused on the money, they forget that you're the one bringing. I mean, here you are. For those of you out east, I know there's a lot of you on the call that are out east. It's almost 10 o'clock, and you're on a real estate training call. You're spending your weekends and your evenings learning about real estate. You are bringing that expertise, that time, that energy, that effort to the table. You are the prize, right? You might think that there's a lot of people like you out there, but there's not. There's a lot more people with money that are looking for good opportunities for their money to grow and to not have to spend their evenings and weekends doing it. So you're the prize to be won. And when you take our training, that's one of the most important things we want you to walk away with. People hate to be sold. So if you come across as a salesperson, you're in big trouble. But part of that is flipping the table and basically focusing on a fit, right? You're looking for somebody who's a good fit to work with. And this is something that we have said. What's important to us is having great partners, building long-term relationships, and having fun and doing great deals. We walk away if it's not a good fit, period. And we haven't in the past, and this is why we are so firm on this now, because we have a couple partners who make our life so painful, so painful. They question us on the most minute details, and we cringe when there's a problem at the property, because it just makes the problem 10 times worse knowing that we have to discuss it with our partner. So now fit is 100% the most important thing to us, and money has no power. When our focus is on fit, money isn't even in the equation, okay? Second to that is to not be needy. I always laugh when I say this, because you need money for your investments, so you kind of are needy, but you don't want to come across that way. So of course, the best way to do that is to give yourself options and give yourself time. And I give you this cold analogy of remembering that if this ATM is broken, there's always another ATM around the corner. So don't get hung up on any one person. Just move on. Don't waste time trying to fix it, trying to convince it, anything like that. Just move on. But give yourself options. So line up multiple meetings in a week so that you can look somebody in the eye and say, hey, listen, actually, I think I have the quote here. There you go. Hey, if you don't like this deal, that's okay. I have 3 other people who are interested in discussing something just like this. Okay? So you want to give yourself options, line up multiple meetings, give yourself time, start raising money before you need it, and then give yourself a few days to firm up your JV partners on your deals before you lift conditions. And don't get hung up on any one source. Whew. Okay, I still have some more stuff to cover, but I do want to quickly mention our training that's coming up and explain my super cool offer that I have for you folks who have spent your evening with me tonight. So lots more to cover. How do you get the conversation started? Really what I focused on tonight was giving you some tips for that face-to-face meeting. I didn't dive into a lot of the details around the structures, the paperwork, starting the conversation, the follow-up. I didn't get into any of that. So there's lots more. How do you get that face-to-face meeting? Working on the questions you're going to ask to ensure that you are in fact a fit, developing those 5 whys that I ran by you, what to do when they say yes, and then what to do if you find somebody who's better suited to be a private lender or an RSP lender or a JV partner. How do you present to them? Because you do have to tweak things depending on what you find they're better suited for. And of course, how can you protect your interest in the deal? Lots of stuff still to cover. And if you get in a bad partnership, how do you break up? So we cover all of that and more in Fund Your Deals in 49 days, and we're starting on March 19th. It's a virtual training, and it goes basically until June 20th, and you get email access to me throughout the entire course. So if you have questions about anything you're learning in the training, you'll be able to ask me over email, as well as we have 7 live calls together as a group. And I believe there's 20 people maximum, and I believe that you'll have at least 30 minutes on most of the calls to open it up and work on things with me. And usually only about half the group shows up, so there's always time for you to get some airspace. So just really quickly, I want to run you through what is in this program. The focus is on getting you the confidence to land meetings and get yes, and getting people to step forward. Our whole process is a little bit slower. I won't lie, it takes a little bit of time because you're getting people to step forward and say they're interested, and then you're screening them, and then you're building referrals, and then getting your face-to-face meetings. So it takes a little bit of time, but it's such a leverageable system, and it snowballs, right? So the work you put in today, 6 months from now, it starts to pay off. A year from now, it really pays off, and so forth. We're going to teach you how to work only with your ideal money partners, raising money so you have options, setting things up so money for your deals basically is there. Like I said, we have somebody who's ready like clockwork every 6 months. Not chasing leads, and creating your no cold calls lead list. Creating, we call it again your presentation, but it's really about practicing to control a conversation. So here's the curriculum. Our kickoff call is March 19th. Then I'm going to take you through the whole process in great detail. We're going to walk through JV paperwork, the bank accounts, all those little details, money raising mindset, and where to find the money. Then we're going to spend a lot of time on the face-to-face meetings, handling objections. Like I said, we spent an entire 2 hours just on the objections. And then the whole thing, right? We call it the pitch, right? The entire process, the conversation face-to-face. So that's the curriculum in, 60 seconds or less. So it's delivered online through a mix of live and pre-recorded training. All training gets recorded, and because I do have tech support available on all of those, not when I'm doing a call like this, so I don't always get my recordings to work, but on that there is tech support, so all the calls get recorded. And email access to me, from March 19th to May 20th, and you get our contracts, our marketing materials, our ROI calculating spreadsheet, lots of resources throughout. And we include RSP training with all the documents that you need for samples. I'm also spending 2 hours on a special training call to help you become a recognized authority. Plus, you can have one on call with me before July 1st, I believe, so we can practice together. All right, lots more that we cover. I won't spend any more time on all of this. You can check it all out on our web page that I'll give you in a second. I do want to tell you today only bonuses for all of you folks who join me on the line. I want to give you a special treat because I love action takers, so people who know this is right for them, they want to join me, they want to spend 2 months working with me on this. I have Insider Vault expert calls. You're going to get access to all of our calls. We have 2 different calls with Pierre-Paul Turgeon, a multifamily investing expert, talking about finding multifamily properties, funding them with JVs, funding them with the bank, and so on. So it's, I think, about 4 hours of training on multifamily investing. We also have a 90-minute call on the real estate cycles with one of the authors of The Secrets of the Canadian Real Estate Cycle. We have a call on wholesaling. We have one with Susan Lassiter-Lyons, one of the smartest businesswomen and real estate investors I've ever met, and one on rent to own, one on tax and setting up whether you need a corporation. We have that with George Duby. And yeah, and then I think there's one other one on just lifestyle design, buy and hold investing with one of our colleagues from Alberta. Plus, you'll receive a signed copy of my More Than Cash Flow. So if you've already got a copy, but maybe it's not signed, you can give that copy to somebody else, and I'll sign this one for you. And a $300 voucher that you can use to apply to Revenue's Accelerated Consulting Services or the new Elite Investor Training, which I spent, 2 minutes talking about tonight, which is really going to be geared towards stepping out and doing some speaking or getting published, setting up a website so that you can be known as the authority in your niche, in your community, even across Canada if you want. All right, so that's today. Only sign up by the end of, I'll give you till tomorrow because it's getting late for a lot of you, but the price of this training is $997 or 3 payments of $369, and you go to realestatejointventure.com fundraising.ca, type in the code CREW, C-R-E-W, and then that will sign you up for those bonuses. I'll know, excuse me, losing my voice, I'll know that you were on the line with me tonight, so that will get you those bonuses. And this is our guarantee. If you go through the training, put it into practice, and there's some reason why our program isn't working for you for any particular reason, then we'll refund your money, and I'll personally coach you one-on-one until you get your first or next deal funded. So my refund does not apply. If you don't do the work, too bad, right? That's on you. But if you do the work and for some reason it's not working, I want to make sure this works. I'm here to help you. So that's my guarantee, okay? And I don't refund you if you don't do the work, you don't show up, because you've taken a spot from somebody else, because I'm only taking 20 people, and it's not fair to the other people or to me. Okay. I won't spend too much time on rave reviews because I have probably, I don't know, 50 or 60 now from people who have used our training to raise money. What we teach absolutely works, and I have on that website, you'll see lots of great endorsements, lots of people who have gone through the training. But I want to spend time answering your questions for the next 20 minutes or so, and acknowledge you all for sticking with me, because this has been heavy duty, 90 minutes of pretty intense content, and you guys are still here, so awesome. Yeah, so this is one of my favorites, so I have to say this. So much great information. You'd be a fool to prepare the deals the way the books want you to. I love that one. Okay, now questions. I'm going to go back through here, but I saw some hands raised, so I will unmute you if you still want to talk. Harjinder, I hope I'm saying that right. If you want to speak, I am about to unmute you, so if you have questions, go ahead. Hello? Harjinder? Okay. It was a long time ago that your hand went up, so I'm assuming it's gone down. Looks like other people have lowered your hands. Are you scared of me? All right. So you can raise your hand if you want to talk with me, if you have questions, anything like that. Go ahead. Gotta go. Some people are hanging up on me, so thank you. Bye. Good night if you have to go. I have a couple more tips that I'll share with you in a second. I know there was a question here. Let's see, that I saw that I wanted to address. I'm sorry, it's probably buried here. So if you had a question that you typed in that you want an answer for, go ahead, let me know now, and I'll bring it back up. And you know what? I want to mention I would be honored to help you with this. Learn to access all the cash you'll ever need, get over your fear of asking for money, and create confidence in yourself. And do connect with me if you haven't already. Now, Tim, I know you're there. If you can, I'd love it if you want to say hello and give a few tips, because I know you're hot off a conversation that raised money the other day. So I'm going to unmute you and bring you on the line and give me a chance to rest my voice too. Hello, Tim.
Hi, Julie.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. I need a break though, so I'm hoping you can just share a couple quick tips. And everybody, this is Tim Collins. He has his website I mentioned already tonight, studentrentalinvesting.com, and he's been through our raising money training and has been putting it to very good use.
Yeah, so I set out with an aggressive plan of leaving my job, and I did successfully quit my job last summer with most of the kind of actually implementing some of the tactics I learned through the course I took with Julie and Dave helped me in that negotiation itself, so that was really cool. But specifically around the JV stuff, I think it's just, for me, it was just having a lot of conversations, so speaking to a lot of people, getting over fear of asking questions, making sure I could handle any objection that people were going to throw at you, because when I started out, you're kind of going to sit down with somebody in a defensive mode. And I think a lot of people talk about it from the point of view of saying, you've got to do a pitch or a presentation. And for me, that conjures up in my mind, sort of standing up in a boardroom with a flip chart and kind of explain things to people. And that's not how it is at all for me now. Now it's a coffee or a beer, if I'm lucky enough. And it's just a conversation about understanding what their aspirations are from an investment point of view. What have they done historically? Are they satisfied with it? By the way, most people aren't, so that's a good question. And then it's me demonstrating through asking those questions, demonstrating my expertise in a specific niche. And one thing that Julie didn't mention a lot of tonight was really the thing that's given me the ability to have those conversations is because I'm so laser focused on what I do. I focus on student rentals in a specific geography, and that allows me to show people that I'm an expert in my specific area. So I think those things have been really helpful. And I did get the question at the start, people saying, well, why do you deserve 50% of this deal if you're not putting the money in? And similarly to what Julie said, I haven't been asked that now in months. Like, people don't ask me that question anymore. It just doesn't come up at all. And I don't know the exact moment of when it changed or what changed in me, but they can tell that I own my expertise, and I'm worth every penny of the value they get of investing in me. I think it was Dave who said something which resonated with me back in the day, which was it's better to own 50% of an amazing opportunity than 100% of a crappy one. And unfortunately, I mean, I've got loads of experiences. If you've read Julie's book, Julie and Dave did a lot of stuff as well. And sometimes you buy things which are wrong, and you have to learn the hard way. So, you can avoid that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tim. That was great. And and you know what? I think, having worked with you, I think the point changed when when you started to own the words. I can't remember exactly when it happened for you, but I remember you saying, because at first you're kind of using some of the words that, sentences and how we respond to questions and, just to practice. And then as you really got into it and had enough conversations, you found what was you in that, and I suspect that's probably when it started to change, because you practiced it enough that you had enough confidence to answer it how you would answer it.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't be fooled by my strange accent. I play hockey as well, and one of my first ones was sat in the car with somebody on the way to hockey practice, and I just literally was kind of innocently enough telling them what I was up to, and that discussion just evolved into them saying, well, what if I want to get involved as well? And that turned into my first joint venture deal. And then I thought, maybe I'm onto something. So I went to every one of the other 15 guys on my hockey team and said, do you want to go out for a coffee? I'm starting this business. I'd like to tell you about it. And I would go into it with a view to just really telling them what I'm doing, not wanting to invest with them specifically, but just kind of give them a heads up. And obviously, as soon as you start saying to people, this isn't necessarily for me and you, I just want to get your feedback, people instantly turn around and say, well, what if it was me? Like, what if I did want to do something? So, those kind of tactics, which I learned from you, really pay dividends when you're in those conversations.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on the line and sharing that with everybody.
It's fun to listen. Thank you.
All right. Take care. All right. So I got a few questions that I'm going to answer here. So Angela wants to know how to convince buyers to go into rent-to-own. So I'm not sure by buyers. If you want to come on the line, Angela, you're welcome to raise your hand and I can unmute you. But by buyers, do you mean investors? Because that's what we're talking about. I don't want to get into a rent-to-own training. But yeah, if you want to either type and clarify or just raise your hand and I can unmute you and you can ask me, that would be great. And thank you, Harjinder. I'm sorry that we didn't get you live to ask your question, but thank you for your compliments. I'm glad that you enjoyed tonight. Daniel's asking, when you do your JV, who goes on title, the person who put the money in or both? Whoever's qualifying for financing needs to be the one that's on title. So ultimately, if you're not able to qualify for financing, you can't be on title. So you need to have the person who's getting financing be the one on title. In most of our cases, our JVs, it's our partner that goes on title because they're qualifying for financing, and we have our joint venture agreement that protects us. And there's a lot of elements in that contract that we do discuss in Fund Your Deals, but ultimately that's our ownership share in the agreement, is that joint venture agreement, but our partner is on title in most cases. Oh, yes, thank you, Kevin. All right. Awesome. So he's reminding me that I wanted a reminder to talk about how to leverage your deals into more deals. And so thank you. So yes, actually there's a couple key ways that you'll leverage a partner into new deals. And the first is asking your happy partners. So don't do it, you close your deal and then 2 days later, hey, do you know anybody else? That's not quite what it's about. But 3 or 4 months later, checking in, are you happy, everything going well? And hey, by the way, do you know anybody else who might be interested in an opportunity like this, right? So getting your partners to refer other potential people, fantastic source. Another thing is, and this is a little harder to do when you just have one person, but as you get a few investors that you work with, getting a new potential investor to speak with one of your current happy investors is a great way. And we're now at the point, and we've been there for a little while, where we have enough partners where we can kind of cherry pick who we're going to refer people. So I think, okay, what do they have in common? And, one really clear example we have is we actually have 3 people now who have done Ironman triathlons. So when the second person came along, we said, hey, why don't you talk to our happy partner who's also, by the way, done an Ironman. And when the third person came and they were training for an Ironman, hey, listen, we have 2 other people that you can talk to. And by the way, make sure when you're talking to them about, you ask them about the deals and if they're happy with how the investment has gone, but also ask them about the 2 Ironmans they've done, right? So if you can connect that whole thing with affinity or familiarity, right, something that they've shared in their background or they have some connection, then that will help them have more trust in that endorsement, that referral. But having them, we have never, again, I'm going to knock on wood, but we have never had somebody talk to one of our partners and not invest with us. So once they move to that step and they talk to our partners and our partners say, yeah, everything's been fantastic, then things go forward. So that's 2 ways, just 2 ways to leverage one partner into multiple deals. But that happy partner referral, there's nothing better, right? That happy partner endorsement, that happy partner referral, things really start to grow fast once you're using that to leverage. So thank you so much. I appreciate the reminder, Kevin, because I did completely forget. So good for you. Registering the JV agreement, Daniel, really a lot to cover regarding that. Ultimately, we're working with people we trust. There are options regarding registering the agreement. We personally don't. But again, that's something that we cover in a lot more detail that I don't really have time to get into too much detail around it. There's options to register it, but we've opted not to for a variety of reasons as well. Great. I'm glad you enjoyed, Paul. Thanks for being here. And let's see. Couple questions. And just so you know, this is the only time I'll be running this course this year. I had somebody comment that they want to take it later this year. I'm only running it live once this year, and live as in the virtual training. And we don't have any scheduled live workshops. As of right now, I'm not currently planning on doing any more live workshops, certainly not this year, and maybe ever. So I'm not saying this is your only chance to get this training, because it is all recorded, and there will probably be opportunities in the future to get it, get access to it. But with me going alongside and working alongside with you each week, this will be the main opportunity for that. Those are, again, it got buried in a lot of people saying good night and thank you. So if you had questions, that's all I have in front of me right now. So I'm inclined to wrap up and save my voice. Again, Tim, thank you for coming on the line. I appreciate it. I do hope anybody who's interested in learning about student rental investing and even connecting with Tim, I do encourage you to check out his website, studentrentalinvesting.com. Of course, if you want to join me for real estate money raising training, I'd love to have you. Again, remember, you are the prize, not the money. Your focus is on finding a fit. And start to plant seeds everywhere you go. So be interesting. Let people, oh, the story I didn't tell you. I knew there was something I was missing on the be interesting part. When you're telling people that you're a real estate investor, find interesting ways to do it, because this was our lesson that I talked about, how people thought we were real estate agents. I think it's because we'd say we were real estate investors and assumed people knew what that meant, and people just thought that we were in the real estate business and that meant real estate agents. So now, I often will say I collect houses or some version of that. And it's way more interesting. People ask me questions about it all the time. And I was just at an open house in our neighborhood 2 weekends ago. And I went in and said said to, actually the realtor knew us because we'd been to other open houses of his because we stock houses on a regular basis. And that's another thing, I stock houses. But we went into the open house and some other people were coming in behind us and they said, oh, how's your house hunt going? And I said, oh, well, you know, I'm just kind of snooping in this one because I live 2 blocks away. I said, but I do collect old houses. I'm always looking for a new old house to add to my collection. And he laughed and he said, that's an expensive hobby. And I said, well, actually, you know, I work with investors and, you know, I put tenants in there so they pay the rent and help me pay some of the expenses. So it's not that expensive, but, you know, it can be. And we laughed and he started to ask me questions, right? It's just because I was interesting. I said something in a different way, unexpected. So use that, you plant seeds everywhere you go, but be unexpected, right? That's one of the best lessons. You know, when you're posting on Facebook, you can post funny pictures about what you're doing. Absolutely. Just don't be boring, right? Oh, I looked at another house today. Boring. But, you know, post a picture of something funny you saw in this house. Hey, would this make a good investment? You know, that kind of thing. Practice your questions and answers. Or prepare them, and then, of course, practice so that you're controlling the conversation. All right, there's still questions coming in, but if you guys don't mind, I'm losing my voice, so I'm going to wrap up for the night. I just really want to thank all of you for sticking it out for this long session, and I'm so glad to hear that so many people got so much value out of it. I hope to work with some of you going forward, whether it's in this Raising Money training, Elite Investor, or something in the future. And if I'm ever at an event and you're there, please do come up and say hello. I love meeting people from the revenue community. So thank you so much for being here tonight, and take care.